You have said that while the world battles the coronavirus, our adversaries are taking advantage of us. Who, how so, how bad is it right now?
There's a number of things, Emily, that we're seeing in this environment. One, and sort of the most obvious, is we're seeing overt messaging from our enemies. Folks like the folks in China, folks in Russia, Iran, saying this is a U.S. virus, right? It's coming from the United States. It was a bioengineered weapon, the like, sort of stuff that we know isn't true, but we see that kind of messaging. Part of what we see going on there is an attempt by them to distract their own population from the very real challenges they have in their countries, but also an opportunity as they see the U.S. focused inward to take advantage of that situation and maybe moves overseas. So you see Iran also getting more aggressive in a physical sense in Iraq through their proxies, Kataib Hezbollah, conducting attacks on U.S. forces there in the hopes to push us out. And we see a lot of that going on around the world. So there's a lot of both overt and covert messaging taking place, as well as some activities in the physical space too.
On that note, there's new reporting that State Department cables from a couple of years ago show that there were concerns about safety at a Wuhan lab, which has renewed fresh speculation that this originated in a lab. The Pentagon has said the evidence is inconclusive on that part, but what's your inclination here?
One of the challenges that we faced is there's been discussion, was this an engineered weapon or a naturally occurring disease? I think what everyone agrees now at this point that the best scientific evidence to date indicates it's a naturally occurring disease coming likely from bats and maybe through another species. But what's really interesting about this new reporting is the concerns that what might have been happening at one of these labs in Wuhan. There are two, a biosafety level lab 2 and a biosafety level 4 lab, both of whom work on bat coronaviruses, investigating and studying them, right? And so what could have happened here is simply a waste product from that lab or you know, a bat or an animal that escaped from the lab, or that got transmitted to a human in the lab, and then that human left and the virus began spreading. What we do know for sure is that the virus originated near Wuhan. The first cases were there. We also know that some of the early cases were not out of that wet market that we've always talked about in Wuhan. So we know there were other cases in other clusters. So the indication is it came from somewhere else, potentially other than the wet market. The question is where, and might it have been these labs, these lower safety concerns? And that's a very real concern because that indicates not necessarily culpability on the part of the Chinese government, but a role the government may have played unintentionally in the virus getting out.
We don't have any evidence that this waste product theory has any water, though. We don't know, right?
Well, you know what's interesting about the theory is you're seeing a lot of leaks coming out of the U.S. government about the concerns raised about the lab. Just in January 2018, we saw Tom Cotton out there talking about intelligence reporting that he was hearing potentially about government sourcing on this stuff. And so what's interesting is there's an increasing drumbeat suggesting that there is some sort of connection to these labs, right? What the connection is, we're not sure. And you're right, there's no rock solid evidence, right? What we do know is it's not a bioengineered weapon.